The file opens with the dry crackle of paper that has slept in a locked drawer since the war's end. Its cover bears a simple, chilling stamp. Most 3, absolute secret. Material, V-2 rocket fragments. Poland, 1944. For decades, the world knew that Allied scientists gained access to a German V-2 missile long before the liberation of Europe. Few knew the story behind it, how a network of school teachers, farmers, railway workers, and underground couriers outwitted the German army, slipped under the noses of SS patrols, and spirited the world's first supersonic weapon out of occupied territory, piece by piece in broad daylight. The first images show soldiers locked in chaotic battle, rifles cracking, smoke flattening the sky. The Second World War swallowed Europe in fire. On the Western Front, Allied forces pushed slowly toward Germany. On the Eastern Front, the Red Army swept across ruined cities. But in the middle, inside Poland, another war raged silently, one fought not by armies but by the underground home army, the Armia Krajowa. Their battlefields were forests, fields, barns, and railway sidings. Their weapons were secrecy and courage. Their enemy, Nazi Germany's most advanced weapon, the V-2 rocket. Then images of tanks grinding across Europe remind us of the mechanical brutality shaping the war. German armor rolled across Poland in 1939, crushing all resistance. By 1943, the Reich was determined to reverse its losses with new technology. At Peenemünde, Werner von Braun and his engineers were building the world's first long-range ballistic missile. The V-2 could strike London from more than 200 miles away. It flew faster than sound and arrived without warning, and the Allies knew almost nothing about it. A sinking naval ship flickers into view. Across the oceans, the war was tearing apart fleets, choking supply routes, and pushing nations to the brink. Germany believed that if the V-2 could be completed and deployed quickly, it might turn the tide. Then fighter aircraft streak across the sky. The RAF bombed Peenemünde in 1943, slowing rocket development but not destroying it. The Germans simply moved testing grounds deeper into occupied territory, including the marshy fields of the Bug River Basin in Poland. They fired test rockets at night, scattered across remote rural areas where they hoped no one would notice. They were wrong. The next image, bombed-out city ruins, mirrors the devastation Poland lived through every day. Villages burned, civilians vanished, curfews tightened, German guards patrolled with increasing paranoia. Yet in the ruins, the Polish resistance grew stronger. Underground intelligence networks tracked every German movement, every supply train, every coded message. When images of Allied landings appear, they remind us that the resistance understood the stakes. The coming invasion of Western Europe was approaching. The Allies needed to know what Germany was building. And in early 1944, the Polish Home Army got its chance. A V-2 test rocket malfunctioned. It soared into the night sky over the village of Sarnaki, stalled and spiraled downward. Instead of exploding, it crashed almost intact into the muddy banks of the Bug River. German guards rushed to secure the site, but the Polish villagers had arrived first. The next image, civilians fleeing a destroyed town, captures the atmosphere: fear, displacement, and defiance. When the rocket fell, local farmers pretended not to notice, quietly passing word to regional resistance commanders. Within hours, the Home Army assembled a salvage crew disguised as fishermen. As German soldiers searched nearby villages, the resistance team dragged the rocket body from the river, broke it into manageable pieces, and hid it inside a barn under piles of hay. Radio operators tapping messages signify how urgently information was transmitted. Coded reports raced across occupied Poland and into London via secret radio stations. The Allies could hardly believe it. A mostly intact German V-2 had fallen into Polish hands. Meanwhile, German troops guarded the crash zone, believing the rocket still underwater. They had no idea it was already gone. Nurses tending the wounded reflect the underground's constant fear. Discovery meant torture or execution. But the Polish resistance pressed on. Engineers, professors, and metallurgists, many forced into hiding earlier, were brought to examine the fragments. They drew diagrams, analyzed fuel residues, measured nozzle designs, and identified alloys. General staff studying maps remind us that intelligence from the crash would alter Allied strategy. The Polish report described alcohol liquid oxygen fuel, gyroscopic guidance, and welded fuselage sections, details London urgently needed. Then prisoners behind barbed wire evoked the danger of resistance work. At any moment, German agents might raid a house, interrogate workers, or search a field. Possession of a single V-2 bolt meant death. Propaganda posters appear. Germany boasted of secret weapons that would save the Reich. The people of Poland saw the truth, a terror weapon that would soon target civilian populations. Submarines at sea echo the war's global spread, but in Poland the fight focused on one central objective: smuggle the V-2 parts out of the country and into Allied hands. Winter battlefield footage appears: snow, smoke, exhaustion. The resistance operated under those same frozen skies, moving crates through forest paths, avoiding checkpoints, bribing guards, and hiding fragments in hollowed logs. Victory celebrations in Europe flash briefly, still a distant dream in 1944. The V-2 could prolong the war unless the Allies understood it. The ruins of Berlin appear next, but in this story, Berlin still stood tall, and the SS still hunted resistance networks relentlessly. Women in wartime factories remind us that even in occupied Europe, civilians helped coordinate smuggling routes. Railway workers hid crates beneath coal piles. Postal clerks disguised intelligence documents as routine packages. Housewives passed messages between cities. Artillery fire crackles across a battlefield, symbolic of the steady German retreat. The Reich was weakening and the resistance grew bolder. Then we see American and British officers planning operations. They knew that to defeat the V-2 threat, they needed more than reports. They needed physical evidence. Bombers over a city closed the image sequence, foreshadowing the destruction the V-2 would soon bring to London if the Allies failed to counter it. Now the story reaches its most daring chapter. Operation Most III, also known as Wild Horn III, was authorized. A British C-47 Dakota transport aircraft would land in occupied Poland in the dead of night on an improvised field marked only by lanterns. It would pick up the V-2 fragments and fly them straight to Britain. The mission seemed suicidal. German patrols watched the countryside. SS units raided villages nightly. Yet the resistance prepared the landing zone meticulously. On the night of 25 July 1944, while German columns moved across the region, the Dakota approached Poland at low altitude. The Home Army lit 3 narrow lantern lines across a grass clearing. The aircraft descended, bounced, slid, and stopped. Resistance fighters rushed forward with crates containing rocket combustion chamber parts. Turbopump elements, fuel regulator assemblies, guidance, gyroscope fragments, wiring, insulation, and casing alloys. Detailed engineering sketches and chemical analyses, all real, all priceless. The Dakota took off under rifle fire, climbed into the night sky, and vanished toward Allied airspace. The Germans never knew what had been stolen from beneath their boots. Hours later, the aircraft landed safely in Brindisi, Italy. From there, the V-2 fragments traveled to London, where Allied scientists finally began to understand Germany's most advanced weapon. The intelligence gained helped shape countermeasures, improved radar tracking, and influenced bombing priorities, including further attacks on V-2 production sites. It is easy to think the war was won only by armies, aircraft, and industrial might. But much of the Second World War turned on moments like this, when a handful of civilians and resistance fighters risked everything to steal the future out of the sky. The men and women of Operation Most 3 defied the Reich, fooled its guards, outpaced its patrols, and delivered one of the greatest intelligence treasures of the war. They saved lives not through force of arms, but through secrecy, courage, improvisation, and unity. Their story reminds us that even in the darkest occupation, ordinary people found ways to strike at the heart of a tyrant's ambitions and carry hope across a continent in broad daylight under the German flag itself.